Hi, it's Dorothy Guinan with Scrapbooking Quebec. Welcome to video 4 in my series, Simple Pages with Impact. In this series, I share ideas on how to create big impact on simple pages. Pages with wow that come together quickly. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to use titles, tags, and cut-aparts to create this impact. And my goal for these pages is to do them in 1 hour or less. Here's the material I'll be using. I have Pinkfresh Studio's Simply the Best collection. The tools and material I use will be listed in the description box below. And before jumping in, I just have a little bit of housekeeping to do. Last week in my Scrappy Kit and Plans video, I mentioned I would probably only have time to do 2, maybe 3 process videos in April, along with 1 YouTube Live, which would be my very first. So there's going to be 3 process videos, not 2, and the YouTube Live is scheduled for Friday, April 28th. That's going to be on Lauren Hines' channel. It's called Scrapbook Some Joy. I'm going to be a guest on her Friday Night Live, and I don't think it's going to be on my channel. So if you want to catch it, make sure you head on over to Lauren's channel, and I'll put her link below as well. So here's what's on my desk. You can see I have white 12 by 12 cardstock, a matted 4 by 6 photo. Here's the paper from the Simply the Best collection. I have 2 alphas. I have Puffy alphas from this collection along with alpha dies. What's important for this design is that you have at least 2 different alphas, and I'll talk about that later on. Also, I have a tray full of embellishments. I have chipboard frames and flair. I have a bunch of cut-apart sheets and tags. That's really important to this design, along with some ephemera pieces. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut up 3 papers that will form a wide border that's going to take up about the bottom half of my page. And I'll put measurements for these paper parts on the screen a little bit later on. What I would like to mention is I always list measurements for the visible paper only. And you're going to notice here that beige one with circles is the real size, but the 2 other strips are actually wider than the measurements listed, and I overlap when I adhere. So I just wanted to point that out in case you're following along. I'm just applying a bit of ink to all of the edges of these papers. That's Morning Mist by VersaFine Clair, and I'm going to adhere all of this together. Now in the intro I mentioned titles, tags, and cut-aparts. That's because that is going to form the bulk of my embellishing for this layout. And contrary to my typical layouts where I have embellishment clusters, often 2, sometimes 3, for this one I'm going to have more of an embellishment border. So it's going to be less of a cluster, more stretched out, and the base of this is going to be created with big pieces like a large dynamic title, larger cut-aparts, as well as tags. That's why those 3 items are important to this design. As you can see, I have placed my border at the bottom, and I'm showing you I have a mat for my photo. So that's the second mat, and it measures 1/2 inch larger than the white mat that's already underneath the photo. Off camera, I adhered that border to the bottom of the page, and I'm showing you that the adhesive I put behind that white photo mat is actually closer towards the middle. I just made sure not to put it around the edges because I'm going to want to do some layering later on when I'm embellishing between the photo and the photo mats and between the 2 different photo mats. That's why I put the adhesive a little bit further in. Now I want to talk about my title. Like I mentioned, I'm using 2 different alphas. You can use 2 or even 3 if you want, but what's important here is that you have at least 2 in 2 different sizes and 2 different colors. It's going to be placed on white cardstock, which creates an impact already. Now, before continuing with the title, I just want to show you how I created the word train. Basically, those are die-cut alphas from an older Pinkfresh Studio alpha set. And what I did was I backed that gold paper in those Be Creative tape sheets. So I basically cut out paper, just enough paper to house my title. Then I backed it in those Be Creative tape sheets. Then I ran the adhesive back paper through my die cutting machine with my alphas, and out popped self-adhesive letters. I just love that technique. So if you have alpha dies, that's a great product to get. Anyway, my title is on wax paper for placement. I know I'm going to be bumping it up right along the right-hand side of the photo. That's why it's all justified over to the left there. I also know I want it to run along that horizontal border, that gold paper there. Now I'm getting out the other embellishments. So I have them kind of divided. I have the cut aparts and tags in one little pot. Those are the biggest pieces. I have the ephemera in another one. I'm considering those the middle-sized pieces, along with the frames, which again are middle-sized pieces. And then I have the chipboard flare, which are the smaller pieces. What I want to do here is create an embellishment border. So not like 3 embellishment clusters. It's just going to be one big vertical border created with my title, with the embellishments, and my journaling. Now to form this border, I'm going to be using the title, the dynamic large title, along with the cut apart sheets and tags, because those are the biggest elements. And by placing those along the right-hand side of the photo, it kind of takes shape, that border, very much an organic shape. It's not linear, because the length of the words help determine the shape of the border, and also you can see I did a bit of overlapping there. Once I created the main size, the main shape of my border with those bigger elements, I'm coming in with the medium-sized ones, and that would be the frames along with the ephemera pieces. So you see me playing around with a gray circular piece at the top behind the word my. That's actually 2 pieces of ephemera, one layered on top of the other. And now I'm coming in with a frame. So the frame is red. It's introducing another color, and I will address that later on in the process. But I like the fact that it's circular, which kind of mimics the circle at the top. I also like the fact that it has the word adventures on it, and this is me on an all-night train ride, so it's kind of an adventure. Now, when I use frames in embellishment areas, I like to back them. So I'm looking for something to back my frame. I go get the paper that I'm not using in the border with all those circles, and I'm going to just punch myself out a circle. It says "So Special," and I'm just going to back my frame with it. So now I have another smaller element to incorporate it. Now, when I'm creating this embellishment border, and I've already with the larger pieces formed the shape of my border, I want it to taper off at the top and taper off at the bottom. So that's why I'm looking for smaller pieces. So I have those 2 gray pieces that are overlapped. The reason why I'm overlapping them is one of them says "Enjoy the ride," which is perfect for a train ride, but there's a bicycle underneath. So I wanted to hide the bicycle, and I ended up covering it with another piece of ephemera, that round piece that says "Happy Memories" right here. Also, so that's for the top of my border, and at the bottom at this point, I think I'm going to be using that frame, but you're going to see it get switched up. And while I was talking, you may have noticed I ended up inking the 3 cut apart sheets, so the 2 squares along with the tag, and I used the same ink I used earlier. So now I am putting everything back on the page, just trying to find out where I want my title to go, where I want my photo to be, and all of that. I do have to do some finishing touches at the end, but at this point I have to adhere a good part of what I have, because it's difficult to continue with all of these loose pieces on my desk. And the first most important thing is the placement of the photo. And what I did was, once I found it, I just took a pencil and marked the top left corner. That way I knew where to adhere it. And then I just kind of tossed my embellishments, which kind of go in a line. I just tossed them in that order towards the top. The next positioning that's important is this checkered cut apart sheet. And that's because it's going to go between the 2 photo mats there, but more importantly, it's going to go above that gold horizontal border where my word adventure is going to go. And some of the letters in the word adventure, I want them to fit on top of that checkered paper that goes just above that gold border. And I don't know if that makes sense, but basically I want that checkered paper to be just high enough to house those letters. And once I determined that, yet again, I took a pencil and marked it there. Now what you see me doing is backing some of the other cut apart sheets. So that green box there, which is actually going to serve as my journaling box, along with the tag. I just put some scrap cardstock behind it. I like to do that sometimes with my embellishing pieces. Number one, because sometimes I like to pop them up on foam adhesive. And when they're paperweight, I don't like how they bow when I put foam adhesive behind them. And also when I'm overlapping, the same thing. So that green journaling box is overlapping the photo. That's why I wanted it a bit more sturdy. Not necessary, but I like it that way. And for the tag, for example, I end up popping it up on foam adhesive. So now I have the bottom part of that border more or less adhered. I haven't adhered that red frame at the bottom yet because I'm not convinced I want it there. Now what I'm doing is working towards the top there. So again, I started with that checkered piece, worked my way down, then I worked on the title, and then I'm working my way up. I continued off camera with Adventure, put Train on top of that, and now what you see me doing is simply adhering that gray ephemera piece, and then overlapping it, I adhered the word My. So at this point, I decide I don't want that red frame at the bottom. And the reason why is when I create this embellishment border, I like the bigger pieces to form the middle of my border, but I like it to taper off more narrow towards the top and the bottom. So that that gray circle at the top is more narrow. I'm happy with that. But the red frame at the bottom, well, I thought it was kind of big. I ended up tucking it just above that tag there. And what I did was I started looking for other red pieces because I wanted to repeat the red that was in the frame elsewhere on my layout. I ended up taking a piece of chipboard flare, which is smaller, so it's tapering down to a smaller border at the bottom, and it has lovingness at the bottom. So I'm happy with that. I still would like another red piece, but I'm not quite sure what at this point. I end up finishing off that tag there, so I just took a 1/2-inch circle punch and an enamel dot and put it just in the reinforcer area of the tag. I am kind of playing around with different red pieces and I couldn't decide at that point, so I do that off camera. Anyway, here is my finished layout, and I really love the stretched out embellishment cluster. It's just different for me than my typical 2 or 3 cluster areas on a layout. What I also like about it is the title that's on it, which is very dynamic. By incorporating different colors, different sizes, and different fonts, it really does create an impact on the page, especially when it's placed on that white cardstock. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed video 4 in Simple Pages with Impact. If you did, I'd greatly appreciate a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, I would be thrilled if you did. And if you are a subscriber, thank you very, very much. Also, you will find other videos in this series listed below, along with a playlist on my channel. Take care, and I will see you soon on YouTube. Bye-bye.